You might think you need to be a cycling nut in order to ride your bike across an entire city, state, or country. But the truth is, most bicycle travelers are normal people like you and me. With just a small amount of training and the right information, you can complete your first bike trip with relative ease. This video has been constructed to teach you the basics of bicycle touring. 1. How to select the right bike and gear for your trip. And 2. How to plan out your route, pack up your bike, and schedule out your days. Bicycle touring is a memorable and life-altering activity, and it's not nearly as difficult as you might think. So follow along as I share with you the basics of long-distance bicycle travel. Bicycle touring is a form of cycling where riders travel long distances, prioritizing pleasure and endurance over utility and speed. Touring can vary from single-day supported rides to multi-day trips where solo or group riders carry all necessary equipment, tools, food, and clothing. There are a number of different types of bicycle touring that you should be familiar with. The long day trip. This type of tour is usually conducted by an organization which brings bicycle riders together in a single location, and these people ride their bikes for a relatively long distance in a single day. Typical rides of this type can range from 60 to 100 plus miles in a 24-hour period. While bicycle touring is typically considered an overnight activity, these large events will oftentimes label themselves as bicycle tours. The supported tour. The supported bicycle tour is a tour where your gear, i.e. food, clothing, camping equipment, etc., is carried in a vehicle that meets you at various checkpoints along your route. Some of these tours require that you pay to be a part of them, and in this case, the tour leaders typically drive a van or truck of some kind, while you get to ride your bike along a pre-established route. Other times, groups of individuals will simply get together and take turns driving a chase vehicle, while the others in the group ride their bikes. The credit card tour. Credit card touring is when you travel by bike and pack almost nothing but the clothes on your back and a credit card or cash to buy things along the way. Instead of carrying a tent, you pay to sleep in a hotel each night. Instead of cooking your own food, you buy your meals along the way. Credit card tours are typically less than a week in length and are usually not supported by a touring company. The guided, self-supported tour. Then there are tours where you carry everything you need to survive on your bicycle: food, clothes, tent, stove, etc. But a guide from a touring company leads you on a specific route. With these types of tours, you usually ride with a small group of people and are then escorted on a daily basis by an experienced bicycle touring guide. The fully self-supported tour. Finally, there's the self-supported bicycle tour, which requires you to travel alone without a guide and carry all the clothes, tools, and gear you will need to survive for days, weeks, or months on end. This is the type of bicycle touring many people are familiar with, and even today it is one of the most popular ways to travel by bike. Bicycle travel. This is the new breed of bicycle touring. It goes beyond self-supported touring because it's so much longer, more technologically advanced than the bicycle tours of the past, and most importantly, lifestyle-driven. This new form of bicycle touring is not a short-term stint. It is a new form of travel and a new way of living. There are a few items you really need in order to pull off a successful bicycle tour. Some of the basic items needed for your travels include a bicycle, some way of carrying your belongings, whether it be in a trailer, panniers, or a backpack, camping equipment such as a tent and sleeping bag, a stove and the appropriate fuel, bicycle tools, clothing, safety gear such as a helmet and light, technological devices such as a cell phone, camera, or personal computer, food and water, and a variety of other small items and accessories. The following is a brief overview of the different types of bicycles used for long-distance bike travel. As you will see, each bicycle type has its benefits and its drawbacks. The mountain bike. You've probably got an old mountain bike in the garage and you're wondering to yourself, can I really do a long-distance tour on this old thing? Well, I'll be the first to tell you that crossing the country or even riding around the world on a mountain bike is entirely possible. That said, I'll also be the first person to tell you that riding a mountain bike for long distances is not the easiest thing in the world. Most mountain bikes are not made for extensive riding on paved roads, so as you will see in a moment, there are better options. Mountain bikes are great in some situations, however. If you plan to spend a significant amount of time riding on unpaved roads or trails, then a mountain bike is an excellent vehicle for your bicycle tour. Many bicycle travelers riding around the world opt for a mountain bike because they want to be prepared for whatever conditions they might encounter on their journey. A mountain bike is a good choice for shorter trips, just a couple days, off-road travels, or long-term adventures spanning the globe. Maybe you don't have a mountain bike in your garage, but you might have a road bike. A road bike is one of those fast little numbers you saw Lance Armstrong riding in the Tour de France. Road bikes are great for long day rides and supported tours where your belongings are being carried in a sag wagon, but for the long-distance, self-supported tour, road bikes typically won't cut it. Road bikes can work for shorter trips, usually a week or less in length, but if you plan to spend significant time in the saddle, there are better choices. A recumbent bicycle is a bike that you sit and lean back in as though you were sitting in a chair. Many people who ride recumbent bicycles have back or knee problems, but some people like them just because they're fun to ride. Some recumbent bicycles are equipped for long-distance bicycle travel, while others are not. Do your research before buying a recumbent bicycle to make sure it can carry your gear and get you up the long hills you'll likely be climbing. Folding bikes are most commonly known as commuter bikes, but thanks to the growing number of long-distance bicycle travelers, folding bike companies have started to produce folding bicycles made specifically for long-distance touring. The advantage of a folding bike is that you can pack it into a suitcase and put it on an airplane, boat, bus, or train, and travel with your bike in relative ease. Traveling with a full-size bicycle is not always so easy, so folding bikes, while they may look a little funny, do have their advantages. Finally, there is the touring bike. This is the bike made specifically for long-distance touring. What makes a touring bike different than all the bikes mentioned previously? Well, there are a number of things, but here are some of the features that almost all touring bikes have in common. Touring bikes have wider tires than road bikes, enabling them to support more weight and ride in rougher conditions. Most touring bikes can handle a fair amount of off-road riding. Touring bikes are usually made of heavy-duty steel. Because touring bikes need to carry more weight, they need to be made of stronger metals and typically weigh more than lightweight road bikes. Many touring bikes have extremely low gears so that you'll have an easier time climbing hills and mountains. The gearing on a touring bike is very much like the gearing on a mountain bike. Most touring bikes have 3 main chain rings. Touring bike makers know that you're going to be spending a lot of time in the saddle, so they design the bikes to be more comfortable on your back, butt, hands, and neck. With a touring bike, you ride in a more upright position than you would with a traditional road bike. Touring bikes are built to support racks on the front and rear of your bicycle, allowing you to carry up to 4 bags, called panniers, on your bike at a time. Most touring bikes are built to support the use of fenders, and some even come with spare spokes, just in case you break one while out on the road. As you can see, there are a number of different types of bicycles you can choose from. Picking the bike you'll need for your bike tour is going to depend on where you plan to go, how long you plan to spend out on the road, how much gear you plan to carry, and what the road conditions are going to be like. As you begin the process of shopping for a bike, you will discover that there are several different wheel sizes to choose from. Traditional touring bicycles are built with 700C wheels, which are the same size wheels you see on most road bikes, except that they are designed to carry more weight and support a wider tire. Off-road touring bikes, however, are usually built with 26-inch mountain bike type wheels. and still others are built with 29-inch wheels, which are becoming more and more popular. Deciding which wheel size to use for your specific tour is the key. There are a number of different things to keep in mind, but in the end, the secret to selecting the right wheel size depends almost entirely on where you plan to go while on your travels. While traditional touring bikes come with 700C wheels, those traveling to remote areas of the world are usually better suited with a pair of 26-inch wheels. There are two main reasons for this. 1. 26-inch wheels are the kind you see on most mountain bikes. Because they are wider and built for more abuse, using these types of wheels and tires is great for traveling on dirt roads, rocky trails, and in areas where the streets are less than perfect. 2. 26-inch wheels are also best to use in remote places of the world because the bike shops in these areas are unlikely to carry 700C wheels and tires. The 26-inch wheel is standard just about everywhere in the world, whereas 700C wheels are not. So, if you take your bike with 700C wheels on a trip around the world and then find yourself in need of a new tire in a place where they only carry 26-inch tires, you're going to be stuck. This alone is huge, and this, in my opinion at least, is the number one reason you should go with 26-inch wheels if you're planning to travel to a place in the world where bike shops are few and far between. That said, most bicycle tourists don't travel around the world or go to especially remote places. Most people who travel by bike stick to paved roads, and many of them cycle in areas where 700C wheels are easy to find at local bike shops and repair houses. For cyclists in North America, Western Europe, Australia, and a few other spots around the globe, finding 700C wheels and tires won't be a problem. So if you plan to ride in one of these areas, then using a bike with 700C wheels is an excellent choice. Now, if you know absolutely nothing about bicycle touring, you might think that bicycle travelers carry their belongings in a backpack. I know that's what I thought when I first started planning my first bicycle tour. But carrying things in a backpack is not the typical approach for most traveling cyclists. The reason you don't want to carry your gear in a backpack is because using a backpack is going to make you hot, sweaty, and sore. When you spend up to 12 hours a day riding your bike, the last thing you want is to have a big, heavy bag on your back. Instead of a backpack, there are two main ways to carry your gear on your bike, and thus eliminate any excess pressure to your back, neck, or body. The two main ways that bicycle tourists carry their gear is with the use of panniers and/or a trailer. Panniers are backpack-sized bags that attach to the front and rear racks of your bicycle. A standard touring bicycle can hold up to 4 panniers, and thus a whole lot of gear. A trailer, on the other hand, is a 1- or 2-wheeled metal cart that you pull behind your bicycle. Inside the trailer, you store your belongings, and like panniers, the weight of your equipment is placed off of your body. You're probably wondering which is better, panniers, a backpack, or a trailer. Well, I've surveyed 2,500 experienced bicycle travelers, and of those surveyed, 90% said they'd used panniers on their previous bicycle expeditions. Only 9% said they'd used a trailer, and a measly 1% admitted to having used a backpack. When it comes to clothing, there aren't really that many things that you actually need. Your typical bicycle traveler is carrying 1 to 2 pairs of clothing to ride in during the day, 1 to 2 pairs of clothing to change into at night, and then maybe another single pair of clothes that they sleep in during the evening. So depending on the length of your tour and the time of year at which you're traveling, you're going to be carrying anywhere between 2 and 5 pairs of clothes. And the closer that you can get to 2-3 pairs, the better. A cycle tourist traveling in the summer might wear the following clothes when on his or her bicycle: a helmet, sunglasses, a shirt or jersey, shorts, socks, and a pair of shoes. A cyclist traveling in the winter, however, might ride with the following pieces of clothing: a helmet, goggles, a face mask, a shirt or jersey, a warm jacket, a waterproof jacket, gloves, waterproof pants, warm socks, and a thick, waterproof set of shoes. When it comes to selecting a shoe for your long-distance bike tour, you have to think not only about your time on the bike, but your time off the bike as well. If bicycle touring were like traditional road racing, a road shoe would be ideal because a road shoe clips into the pedal on your bike and gives you that optimal performance while you're pedaling. Unfortunately, road shoes are extremely uncomfortable to walk in, so a better option is to use a mountain bike type shoe with an SBD pedal or clip on the bottom. These SBD clips allow you to clip into the pedal on your bike, very much like road shoes allow you to do, but they're much more comfortable when walking off your bike because the clip on SBD shoes are submerged into the bottom of the shoe, so you can walk a considerable distance in relative comfort. Another option for the long-distance cyclist is to simply ride in a regular pair of tennis shoes, with the assistance, possibly, of a toe clip or strap. This would allow you, obviously, to walk in extreme comfort off the bike, and the toe clips or straps would allow you to get a little extra performance out of your pedaling while on the bike. If you plan to camp while on your bike tour, you have some choices as for how exactly you can do that. You can camp in a tent, you can sleep inside a bivy sack, which is kind of like a combination between a tent and a sleeping bag. You can sleep in a hammock, providing that there are trees or other objects to hang the hammock on, or you might just choose to sleep out under the stars, depending on the time of year that you're traveling and the weather conditions, of course. All of these are fine options, but most bicycle travelers carry either a tent or a bivy sack, as these two options provide the best protection from the elements, give you a private place in which to change your clothes and store your gear, and separate you from the weather and the animals. And they allow you to camp just about anywhere you please. Your tent is your home out on the road, and you want to be comfortable inside your home. And so for that reason, you need to find a tent that you're going to be comfortable living in for the duration of your tour. That said, there are a number of things to keep in mind when selecting a tent. First of all, size. Before buying a tent, make sure that the tent is small enough to fit on the back of your bike or inside one of your panniers. The tent you select needs to be small enough to fit on your bicycle, but large enough that you're able to fit comfortably inside of it. Secondly, weight. You need to select a tent that is lightweight. As with every piece of gear that you bring with you on your long-distance bike trip, you need to find the lightest instruments possible, and your tent's no exception. So be sure to look at the weight of each and every tent that you consider purchasing. After selecting your tent, the next most important piece of sleeping gear is your sleeping mat, oftentimes called a sleeping pad. The sole purpose of a sleeping pad is to 1. Make you comfortable so that you can sleep at night, and 2. Lift you up off the cold, hard ground, therefore making you that much warmer at night, something that's very important if you plan to camp in cooler conditions. When selecting a sleeping bag, you need to consider how cold it's going to be while on your travels. Different sleeping bags are rated for different temperatures, so pay attention to the temperature ratings on your bag and compare that to what the temperatures are going to be like in the areas in which you plan to travel. Space is another issue with sleeping bags that you need to pay attention to, as sleeping bags are the number one culprit in taking up a large amount of space on the back of a traveling cyclist bicycle. What I recommend you do when you're picking out a sleeping bag is that you take one of your bicycle panniers with you to the local sporting goods store where you plan to get your sleeping bag, and put the sleeping bag inside your pannier. If the bag takes up too much space inside the pannier or doesn't fit at all, the sleeping bag is oftentimes too large and you need to get a smaller one. So that's a good way to find out whether or not your bag is too big for your bike. The last thing to pay attention to when selecting a sleeping bag is the material that the bag is made of. Oftentimes, warm sleeping bags are made of a down material, which is great because they're very warm and they compact down to a very small size. The downside of down is that when down sleeping bags get wet, they take a very long time to dry. So you'll oftentimes see that there are sleeping bags made of a synthetic material. And these are great because they actually dry very, very quickly, although they don't compact down to quite the size of a down sleeping bag. They're slightly larger. So you have to decide between having a very small and light sleeping bag that doesn't dry very quickly if it gets wet, or having a slightly larger, heavier sleeping bag that dries very, very quickly if it does get wet. If you plan to cook your own food while on your travels, your basic list of cooking gear might consist of the following: a backpacking stove with a fuel bottle, a cook pot with a lid, utensils such as a spoon, fork, and knife, insulated travel mug, water filter, a lighter and/or matches, various herbs and spices, soap, and a rag for cleaning. Cooking gear is one of the areas where many people overdo it. In most cases, you can get away with packing just the following items: one backpacking stove, one fuel bottle, one cook pot with lid, one sharp knife, one spork, one lighter or a set of matches, and one mini bottle of soap for cleaning. If cooking for 2 or more people, you might need to carry a larger pot and additional dishes or utensils, but for the most part, that's really all you need. When picking out a camp stove, your destination very much determines the type of stove you'll ultimately be using. If you're planning a short bike trip and you live in an area with a dedicated outdoor store, you might choose to travel with a stove that runs on white gas, propane, or a propane-butane mix. These types of camp stoves are typically very small, lightweight, clean burning, and easy to control. However, finding these types of fuels on the road can be difficult. So while they may be perfect for shorter bike trips close to home, they're not ideal for round-the-world travelers. For those traveling in remote corners of the globe, a stove that runs on unleaded gasoline is likely your best bet. These types of stoves run on the same type of fuel that your car uses, and some of these stoves can operate on numerous types of fuel, which can come in handy if you're unable to find a gas station willing to let you fill up. Because unleaded gasoline can be found just about anywhere in the world, this type of stove is ideal for the long-term bicycle traveler. Your basic toolkit should consist of the following: one multi-tool with screwdrivers, Allen wrenches, etc., 2 to 3 tire levers, a pump, a patch kit, 1 to 3 spare tubes, chain lube, 1 pedal wrench, and 3 to 4 spare rack screws. If you want to be overly prepared, you might also carry 2 to 3 spare spokes, a spoke wrench, an extra tire, an extra chain, brake cables, and spare derailleur parts. Before you set out on your first bike tour, it's important that you know how to make some basic repairs and adjustments to your bicycle. Now, you don't need to be a certified bicycle mechanic to go on an extended bicycle adventure, but having an overall understanding of your bike and some of the basic repairs that need to be made will make your life on the road that much easier. By the start of your tour, you should be able to repair a flat tire with a patch kit, replace a tube, adjust your front and rear derailleurs, put on and remove your pedals, adjust your seat and handlebars, adjust your brakes, adjust your pedals or toe clips, clean your chain, install and remove your chain, install your racks and water bottle cages, hitch up your trailer if you're using one, and attach your panniers. When it comes to packing your panniers, there's 7 things you need to keep in mind. There shouldn't be too much weight in the front of your bike or too much weight in the back. You want about 60% of the weight you're carrying to be on your bicycle's rear rack and 40% on the front. On the same note, there shouldn't be more weight on one side of the bike than on the other. You don't need to pack a scale to weigh out your bags each day, but you should use your arms to feel each pannier before putting it on your bike, so as to make sure the bags on each side are relatively even when it comes to their weight. Keeping your weight centered will not only help you stay in control of your bicycle, but it will help prevent mechanical breakdowns, broken spokes, and stress to your body's back, neck, shoulders, and arms. When you're packing for your trip, be sure to leave some extra space in your panniers for items you might need or want to pick up along the way. If you leave home and your panniers are already stuffed to the gills, you've packed too much. Living out of your panniers requires that you pack and unpack your gear on a daily basis. To make sure you don't lose anything in the packing process, and to save yourself huge amounts of time while out on the road, make it a practice to put everything back in the same spot each time you pack up your bike. This will prevent you from having to unpack every single pannier when you need to find a particular item, because you'll know exactly where every item is located, because you've always put things in the exact same spot each and every time you packed up your bike. While you're riding your bicycle, there are going to be a few items that you want to access regularly. Packing these items inside your handlebar bag, or at the very least inside your front panniers, will make reaching them that much easier. Having your water, map, sunglasses, camera, and snacks for the day all within arm's reach will ensure that you don't have to get off your bike every time you want to check the map, take a photo, or get a quick bite to eat. Before you ever leave home, practice packing your panniers. Practicing will help you figure out what items you really need for your tour, and help you figure out how to distribute your weight evenly. By the time you leave on your tour, you should have practiced packing and unpacking your panniers at least 10 times. More and more cyclists these days are traveling with high-end cameras, GPS devices, and pricey laptop computers. To make sure these valuable items are secure, I recommend packing them in your rear panniers and placing them on the non-traffic side of your bicycle. Front panniers are often less stable than rear panniers and are more likely to bounce off their racks. Placing your expensive gear on the non-traffic side of your bike will ensure that if for some horrible reason you're clipped by a passing vehicle, the only bags affected by the accident are ones that contain dirty clothes and easy-to-replace food items. Finally, consider the weather you might experience while on your travels. Waterproof or water-resistant panniers help to keep rain and snow from soaking your clothes, food, electronics, and other personal items. The sun and heat also need to be taken into consideration, especially if you're planning to travel with expensive electronics. If you're carrying a computer or camera, do what you can to place these items on the shady side of your bicycle, and consider packing especially important items inside additional padding, covers, or waterproof sacks. If you purchase a set of panniers that are not 100% waterproof, you still have some options as to how to protect your belongings from the elements. First of all, you might consider purchasing a set of rain covers. Rain covers are inexpensive fabric covers made just for bicycle panniers that slip over the outside of the pannier and protect your belongings inside from rain, snow, and hail. Your other option is to purchase a set of waterproof bags like these shown here from a company called Sea to Summit. When packing your panniers, place your valuable belongings inside these waterproof bags and then place the bags inside your panniers. During a rain or snowstorm, your panniers may get wet, but your belongings inside will stay perfectly dry. Riding a fully loaded bicycle for the very first time can be extremely scary. Having a significant amount of weight on the front of your bike makes handling a touring bicycle much different than riding a normal unweighted bike. And for this reason, you need to practice riding your fully loaded touring bike in a parking lot or on a non-busy street well before you take off on your first bike trip. Most first-time bicycle tourists riding fully loaded bicycles take about 2 to 3 days before they're totally comfortable steering their bikes. But after a few days of practice, you should be able to handle your touring bike in much the same way you would handle a non-weighted bicycle. Practice, practice, practice. The last thing you want is to get out on your bike trip and on the very first day realize you can't control your bicycle. Practicing before you leave home is extremely important to your safety and the overall success of your tour. When it comes to the weight of your bicycle, you want to keep it as low as humanly possible. There is no correct answer as to how much weight you should or should not be carrying. Cyclists on short, multi-day credit card tours might pack as little as 5 extra pounds of gear, while a self-supported bicycle tourist traveling for months on end might carry 60 or more pounds of additional gear and equipment. A good rule of thumb when considering your bicycle's weight is that your bicycle should be light enough that you're able to pick it up and carry it for a considerable distance. If your bike is so heavy that you can't pick it up and carry it for a distance of at least 20 or 30 feet, your bike probably weighs too much and you need to get rid of some of the gear that you've packed. When you begin planning out the route for your bicycle tour, you first need to consider your options for lodging along the way, as your route may very well be decided by whether or not there are places to sleep along the way. A traveling cyclist might consider the following options for accommodations along his or her tour. Hotels. They give you access to a hot shower, a warm bed, and plenty of drinking water, but they're out of the price range of many traveling by bike. Hostels. Cheaper than hotels, but with many of the same luxuries. Be prepared to share your room with strangers. Campgrounds. The most popular form of lodging for traveling cyclists. Cheap, oftentimes with showers and running water, but if you plan to camp, you'll need to be sure to pack a tent, sleeping bag, and sleeping mat. Staying with friends or family. A great way to spend the night for free and catch up with those who are important to you. Stealth camping, which is the act of quietly finding a place away from people where you can camp for the night and then quickly slip away in the morning without being detected. The key to stealth camping is to remain hidden at all times and to leave no trace of your existence during or after your departure from the site. Stealth camping is perfectly legal in some parts of the world and completely illegal in others, so do your research before attempting a night of secretly camping in the bushes. Staying with strangers, by either knocking on their door and asking for a place to spend the night, or by using a service such as couchsurfing.com, warmshowers.org, or globalfreeloaders.com. When you begin planning your trip, you need to know that most bicycle tourists travel between 40 and 60 miles in a single day. They then spend the night at one of the aforementioned places and then continue on the next day for an additional day of cycling. Some people traveling by bike love to ride long and hard, and these people may travel as many as 100 or more miles in a single day. Others like to take it slow and enjoy the sights and sounds along their route. These people might travel as little as 5 to 30 miles in a single day. There is no rule here as to how many miles you need to cover when traveling by bike. You get to decide how far you want to go each day and where you wish to stop along the way. My suggestion, however, is that during the first few days of your trip, you keep your mileage under 40 miles per day. The first 3 days on the road are usually the hardest, so keeping your mileage low will allow you to settle into your new life on the road and comfortably get used to traveling by bike. One of the best ways to prepare for your bike trip is to live off of your bicycle for 1 to 2 weeks prior to your tour. By living off of your bicycle, I mean that you should have the bike all packed up and ready to go. Pack it as though you're about to leave on your tour at this very moment. Once you've packed up your bike, use it to run errands, go to work, and visit your friends. At night, when you need to take a shower and brush your teeth, use the toiletry kit packed away on your bicycle to tend to your personal business. And when night falls, set up your tent, sleeping mat, and sleeping bag, and go to sleep, just like you would as if you were out there on the road at this very moment. It sounds a little crazy, but living in this manner for a couple days or weeks before you leave on tour will not only get used to living off of your bicycle, but it may very well teach you which items you've packed are 100% necessary and which ones are useless and can be left at home. Riding your bike is the best way to train for a long-distance bike tour. Daily stretching is recommended, and living off your bike for 1 to 2 weeks before you leave home will teach you exactly what it's going to be like to live off your bike for an extended period of time. When it comes to mapping out your route, there are several ways to approach the situation. If you're planning to travel along a pre-established bicycle touring path, there's probably a guidebook or set of maps that have already been created for that particular route. If so, planning out your trip will begin with purchasing that particular set of maps or guidebooks and then simply following their advice. However, if you wish to plan out your own customized bicycle touring route, that's going to be a little bit more difficult. There are a number of different ways to plan out a route by bike, but here's the way that I do it. First of all, decide where you want to start your tour and where you want to finish. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to show you how I'd go about planning a short bike tour from my home in Park City, Utah to Yellowstone National Monument in the state of Wyoming. After deciding on the beginning and ending locations for the tour, plot out all the points in between these two locations that you'd be interested in visiting and/or learning more about. This is part of the planning process that may take some research. I recommend using the web to find interesting destinations along your route. After you've found a couple places that you'd like to stop and visit along your tour, plot out these destinations using a regular paper map or a piece of free software such as Google Earth. After you've done that, begin marking locations on the map where you can find lodging. If you're planning to camp on your bike tour, use your research from the internet to plot out all the locations along your route that have campgrounds. If you wish to stay in hotels, mark all the cities where hotels can be found. After you've finished plotting out all your interest points and the locations of possible nightly lodging stops, you should begin to see some kind of natural path forming between your starting location and your final destination. The trick now is to connect the dots in 40 to 60 mile chunks. Remember, most traveling cyclists travel between 40 and 60 miles per day. So, for the sake of this video, we're going to plan out a route that would require us to ride no further than 60 miles in a 24-hour period. For the first day of this trip, I'll be starting at home in Park City, Utah. And then, according to my research, the next best place to spend the evening would be Evanston, Wyoming, which according to Google Maps is 62.1 miles. Perfect. I then create a spreadsheet using software such as Microsoft Excel, OpenOffice, or Google Docs. On that spreadsheet, I create columns titled Date, From, To, Distance, Lodging, and Notes. In the second row, I fill in the starting date for my tour, July 21st, 2010. The starting location, Park City, Utah. The ending location, Evanston, Wyoming. The distance, 62.1 miles. Details on where I plan to spend the evening, Phillips RV Park, 225 Bear River Drive, Evanston, Wyoming, 82930. Phone number, 307-789-3805. Camping note, costs $15 plus tax. And any additional notes that I might want to make about that particular day of riding. For now, I'll just leave this space blank. Then, you just do the exact same thing for the second day of your trip. Following the interest points and lodging locations we mapped out previously, it looks like the next best place to go is Lake Town, Utah, located on the edge of Bear Lake. According to Google Maps, it's a 50-mile trip from Evanston to Lake Town, a perfect distance for the day. So I record that information on the itinerary we created. In the third row of the itinerary, I fill in the date, July 22nd, 2010. The starting location, Evanston, Wyoming. The ending location, Lake Town, Utah. The distance, 50 miles. Details on where I plan to spend the evening, Bear Lake State Park, Rendezvous Beach Campground, 800-322-3770. Camping note, $13 to $17 per site. And any additional notes that I might want to make about that particular day of riding. Then you just continue mapping out your route in this manner, day after day, until you reach your final destination. It's that easy, and it's a whole lot of fun. When it comes to determining which roads you can travel on with your bicycle and which roads you can't, that can be a little tricky. You can use Google's bicycle directions to help you find a bicycle-friendly route, but even Google can't be trusted 100% of the time. For the most part, bicyclists can ride just about wherever they want, but they can't ride on freeways or interstates. Smaller highways, large city thoroughfares, small country backroads, and tiny residential streets are all open game for traveling cyclists. Just stay away from any major interstates or freeways. So there it is, everything you need to know about going on your first long-distance bike tour. To summarize, this is all it takes to get ready and prepare for your first long-distance tour. Pick a location for your tour based on your area of interest. Decide between taking part in a guided tour or going off on your own. Get a bicycle designed for travel in that part of the world. If traveling off-road or in remote corners of the world, use 26-inch wheels. If traveling on paved streets in modern parts of the world, use 700C wheels. Decide between carrying your gear in panniers or in a trailer. If camping, get yourself a tent, sleeping bag, and sleeping mat. If you plan to cook for yourself while on your travels, get yourself a stove, cookpot, utensils, and other cooking paraphernalia. Be sure to pack the tools necessary to repair your bike out on the road, and safety items like a helmet and light. Don't forget your clothing, food, water, and various technological devices. Then, learn how to repair and make adjustments to your bicycle before you leave home. Practice packing your gear in your panniers or trailer and get used to riding a fully loaded bicycle. Then, plan out your route, decide where you'll be spending each of your evenings, and make plans to turn your trip into a reality. After that, there's nothing left to do but get on your bike and start pedaling. You're ready for your first bicycle touring adventure.